Coming up on episode 203 of Creative Writing, I'm talking about Instagram for authors.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Creative Writing. This is the podcast for you, an author who wants to sell more books without being smarmy. I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today to talk about Instagram for authors. Yay! I've just finished a whole series on platform, basically author platform, starting with episode 197, where I talk about author platform, 198, talking about author newsletter, 199, generally talking about social media for authors, 200, what should authors blog about, content strategy for authors, and let's see, advertising for authors, 201. And then last episode, I talked about the lessons I've learned in 3 years as an author, going from $100 a month to $26,000 in February of this year. So now we're going to talk specifically about Instagram. This is something I have been working on. I've actually been on Instagram since it started 2013 or 2014, back when I had no idea what I was doing. I was using social media for blogging purposes and other things. And so really the Instagram was just kind of part of that. It was family stuff, lifestyle stuff, and nothing to do with what I'm doing now. So when I started let me get something straight first before I dive into this, actually. If you want the show notes where I'm going to have links, I actually do a full written out post about what I'm talking about now. You can go to creativewriting.com/203 for episode 203. But yes, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to give my history with Instagram. We're going to talk about some best practices. There's way too much to talk about in one episode. I'm not sure if I'll do more episodes or at some point do a workshop. I mentioned a workshop in the last episode, which I ended up not doing, and I'm kind of taking a step back for a couple of reasons, but there may be more Instagram info coming, but for now we're going to kind of just touch base on this. So getting back to what I was saying, I started on Instagram way back, but was not using it for the same purposes. And when I started building what I like to call my Emma empire for my Emma St. Clair pen name, which was in 2018, I decided not to do an Instagram handle at all. And actually, when I started the podcast, I started a Creative Writing podcast feed on Instagram. I started a new profile and did not use that. I just realized you can toggle between them easily. It was just too much content to create, and I wasn't in the mood. And so for Emma as well, I just knew that wasn't somewhere I was going to hang out. And so I've talked about this. I did my email list was my main thing, and I have a Facebook reader group as well. And so those were my main two things that I was doing with Emma, and I'm still doing with Emma, but I have now added in Instagram, and I made the decision to keep my same platform because I did have over 1,000, I'd have to go look, maybe 1,400 followers on there. And some of them were not at all interested in what I'm doing now, and they, have probably left, but some were. Some of the people that have been following me on there are friends. Some of them are people who followed my old blog and are still interested in what I'm doing now, even though I'm not talking about parenting like I did on my mom blog. So I had people, I didn't want to lose them. I figured if I was going to do Instagram, for me, I wanted to keep it streamlined. And in a lot of ways, I think it would be easier if I had made the pen name its own thing, but I decided not to. For you, I would say do it, because sometimes I do things that I say, don't do what I say and not what I do. Just because I already had a history in a lot of these social platforms. So I would probably recommend starting your own. It's been confusing. People don't know who to tag because my Instagram handle is Kiki Mojo. And I talk about all my pen names on there, which I have another one that's young adult, urban fantasy, under Sullivan Gray. I do still share some posts of personal things. So I say, Instagram is kind of my place where it all just hangs out. But more and more, I've been seeing what content people are engaging with and changing that more to author stuff. So I have been on Instagram a long time. I've been there long enough that I've seen a lot of things change, and I kind of kept an eye on it, but it wasn't a platform I was using. But starting with the romantic comedy series that I published, starting in October of 2020, I did start using Instagram because For one, these covers that I have for my rom-coms are very much trendy. The illustrated covers, they're very gorgeous. I love my covers. My designers who did the illustrations, I did the full cover, but my designers are actually Instagram illustrators. They're authors, or not authors, they're illustrators and designers on there. So I can tag them in my work, and they have shared the work as well because they helped design the people that are on the covers of my illustrated. So there were a lot of people who were actually using Instagram in my genre. And I knew that my book covers were solid and people loved them. And so I felt like these versus some of my old book covers, which were fine, but I didn't really love them. I never spent a ton on my covers. I never was 100% crazy about them. They worked in my genre, but I feel like in clean, sweet romance, sometimes people are a little bit less discerning. There's some just kind of basic book covers in there. You can get away with a lot less and have readers and make money. Unlike some other genres where I feel like the cover, like fantasy, the cover has to be gorgeous. Anyway, all that to say, when I started doing illustrated covers and in this new rom-com genre and saw that there were a lot of people talking about that on there, I felt like this was a good time to start changing what I was posting and actually start posting again. So really quickly, that's kind of where I'm coming from, my background with Instagram. I want to talk really quickly about the platform itself, and then we're going to kind of go into a little bit of how it works, what Bookstagram is, how to grow and see content, and then a few paid options that I've actually used on there. So Instagram in general, every platform is different, right? Instagram, which is under the Facebook umbrella, it's a visual platform. It's primarily based on images. There's also video on there now, which we'll talk about. Some people also use a lot of text, like longer text paragraphs in their description as they post those images, kind of that term microblogging, where it's not a blog post, but some people will write a lot more on there, and that works for them. That shorter form content that's longer than just like here's me at the beach with my fam. So like a little bit longer in there. So there are people microblogging and who have actually left, coming from the blog world. I've seen a lot of people leave blogging and go just to Instagram, and they're posting not on their blog. They're only posting on Instagram. So they are posting like longer form content on there. Hashtags are a vitally important part of Instagram to discover and be discovered. It's a really simple platform. Unlike Facebook, where there's groups and pages and marketplace and all this stuff, there's just Instagram. Like there's just Instagram, and there are several options of how to post in there, but it's really pretty simple. So you have your main feed, which is the thing you think of most, and what if you go on there and try to post something, that's posting images in your main feed. And you'll see when you kind of go in there, if you go to someone's profile, you'll see their little profile description and all that stuff. A few other little things that we'll talk about. And then you're going to see a grid of the top 9 images, their latest 9 images. And that's considered their main feed. There's stories, and those are videos, images, photos. They're vertical. The images otherwise in your feed are square. The stories are vertical. They disappear after 24 hours. You can find those if you click on a person's, like their little round profile picture of their face. It'll have like a little color around it, and you can click on that to see their stories. If you want to save your stories for longer, you can create highlights. I'm not going to get into the technical stuff on here. That would take way too long. But this is all stuff you can, Google, and there's lots of people posting about it. And the highlights will show up as little circles. You can actually create what you want the cover of that to be. I'm actually going to open up Instagram so I can see that. So it'll be, you've got your profile picture, it'll show followers, all that. It'll have your name, your little profile, and then you'll see the highlights in there. And those are little circles. And then you have your feed where you'll see all your images. And actually, when I look at my feed, as soon as I scroll down, I'm seeing more like 12 images at one time. But it is a grid of 3 across. Reels are Instagram's version of TikTok. They're pretty new. I've talked about those with Megan Erickson. When did we talk about that? That was goodness, what episode did I talk to Megan? I think that might have been episode 195? No, it had to be more recent than that. Maybe we talked about that in 199. So recently I talked with Megan Erickson, who handles social media for other people. I think that's actually what it was, we did that as an interview, about that. So there's some talk about that in there, but Reels are basically 15 or 30-second videos. You get popular music, like you can get pop music attached. It goes through the Instagram app. You can upload video from other programs, which I found is a little bit easier than creating the Reels right in there. And you can choose whether or not it shows in your feed as one of the square images, like it'll crop it to show that square. And then there's also a Reels feed of people, like you can look at my Reels feed, but you can also go search Instagram and look at a general Reels feed where they will show you random Reels that they're featuring on there. And so where you find a lot of these things, like stories, you're clicking on the person's image, the profile image. Once you get down to kind of their main feed where you have the rows of 3 images, there are little things above it. There's a grid option, a little white grid on the far left. Then there's the Reels button, which looks like a director's, like that thing that what is that called? It's like the thing they hold and say cut, the director's thing, with a little play button on it. If people are creating Instagram stories, which we'll get into in a sec, there'll be another little icon next to that. These are little light icons, either white if you're clicked on them or gray. If that's not what you've selected at that time. Instagram TV looks like a little TV with a lightning bolt. There's also guides, which not everyone is using. So if you're not using it, like mine, I'm not using IGTV, so I don't have the little TV. Guides I'm not using either, but that looks like a little magazine or newspaper opening. And then at the far right on these little icons above the images, you'll see what looks like a little person inside of a little sign, and that's who has tagged you. Oops, I just pushed something. So all those, that's how you kind of find the stories are the person's profile. The Reels, IGTV, guides, other things are down kind of above the main feed. So Reels is something that Instagram's heavily featuring right now because it's newer and they want to basically run TikTok off the market, which they're not going to do, but they're trying. Instagram TV, IGTV, I think it's any video longer than either 30 seconds or a minute. And that automatically becomes IGTV. This can happen if you go live. You can also do interviews like on Zoom, and then upload them and have a little IGTV. And then there's guides. Those are newer. Not a lot of people are using them or understand what to do with them. I've seen a few people using them. And those will appear as a little, like newspaper icon, as I said, kind of above the feed. So there's a lot of different options, but Instagram again is pretty simple. Like when you go to Instagram, you're just going to see a bunch of things in your feed. Now it will show Reels in your feed. It crops them to square in your feed. And if you want to see the whole vertical video, because Reels are also vertical, then you can click on that to see. So how does Instagram actually work? There is an algorithm to the feed like Facebook. They show you what they think you want to see. So anything you engage with, they're going to show you more of that. The people that you talk to, they're going to show you more of their content. You can follow people, but you can also follow hashtags. You can search around, and when you search on Instagram, you can search by, just words. You can search by profiles. You can search by hashtags or by places, which I don't really see people doing so often. And then you can follow some of those things. So you can show in your feed, like when you're in your home feed, you'll see the people you follow. You'll see sponsored. So you'll see ads, which run through the Facebook ads or Facebook Business Manager. And then you'll also see anything else you follow. So any hashtags you follow, Instagram will show those in your feed as well. So you might see posts from people you don't follow yet, but use certain hashtags. So you can search for hashtags. You should use hashtags. There is a top, if you're searching for a specific hashtag, you can look at it and then you can either see, typically you'll be able to see the top or most recent. And so that's really helpful as well. It's a good way to find new people or content that you want. So like other platforms, they tend to favor what they want to favor, what they want you to do. And right now that's Reels. So you might see more traction or show up more on a search page or for a hashtag if you're using Reels. When it comes to creating the images and content for your main feed, a lot of people will use the same filter, the same kinds of images, or kind of count the images. I was doing this as I started using it again, where every third picture was a book-related picture. Because at first I didn't really feel like I had all that much book content. So it was still a lot of like lifestyle, like Instagram was my lifestyle with books. And now it's shifting to be a lot more book-related. But what that meant is if you looked at my Instagram, you would see a whole line going down the row of all my book things together. And so I liked how that looked. So a lot of people will really pay a lot of attention to this, the Instagram aesthetic, because it's so visual. So they'll want really similar colors, really similar images. And some people just don't care. And I think the ultimate thing is really to be engaged. So what's going to allow you to be engaged? It's great to think about those things, but if you're never going to be active because you feel like you have to have a perfect feed, I would say it's more important to be active, and then you can hone your feed and change it. And I've seen people do this over time where, like, if you scroll through their feed, if you're clicking on someone's profile, you can see a marked change from where they started doing one thing to another. And some people will use stock images. Some people will create images in Canva to post on there. And some people are taking actual photos. So, and some are using their phone. Some are using like really expensive, nice cameras. So a lot of people are doing a lot of things. It's very visual. Do what you want, but some people care more about the visual aesthetic of their feed, and that's something you can decide on. It's used primarily via the app, although they are rolling out more options to desktops on your laptops and computers. There are some schedulers you could use, like back in the past, you couldn't schedule anything on there, but now you can schedule some posts on there. Tailwind is one I've used. You can actually do it on Facebook through the Creator Studio, which is like through your pages. You can schedule your post there. And there are some other, like Later, or some other things that allow you to post. In the past, that was like illegal. And if you use those apps, it was breaking the terms of service. But that was way back in the day when I was just starting out and Instagram was just starting out. But just make sure if you're using a third-party app for anything with Instagram or any other platform, it's really good to see if they have kind of like the approval of that platform, because I know that was something Twitter, there were some issues and I got my account shut down because in the past I'd used something that I thought was on the up and up, but they actually were not authorized. And so even though I hadn't been using them, I got shut down years later because I'd used them at one time. So it is good to kind of just do due diligence on that and make sure you're not kind of gaming the system in a way Instagram doesn't want, just like you would with any other platform. So let's talk for a minute. Those are like general basic Instagram things. And you guys might be like, yeah. I know. And some of you may be like frantically taking notes of things to Google. We're all over the place, right? So let's talk about Bookstagram. Because Instagram is simple and just based on the kinds of content I've mentioned about feed, reels, IGTV, etc., stories, there isn't some page or group like there might be on Facebook called Bookstagram, or there's not 500 groups like there would be on Facebook called Bookstagram. So when people are referring to Bookstagram, it's really referring to the kind of content or the content creators known as Bookstagrammers or people involved posting basically around books, book reviews, book writing, book covers, anything related to books, book collections, bookshelves. All of this is kind of falling under that heading of Bookstagram. Some of the popular Bookstagram hashtags to look for: Bookstagram, obviously, Bookstagrammar or Bookstagrammers, books. I see a lot of people using that. Bookstagram community, Bookstagram challenge. There's tons. You can go, I'm not going to do tons of hashtag research for you. You can do that on your own. But those are some good ways to kind of see the kind of content people are creating and just get a feel for it. So you can go follow some of those hashtags and see that stuff in your feed, or just go search and see what content people are creating. The primary people that are creating the content in this Bookstagram community are readers. Often I've seen people just starting out and they're just posting reviews of books they already own or books they've bought. Some of them are showing, usually they're showing the book cover or themselves reading the book cover, or they do above photos like the flat lay where you're looking down at the book, either ebook or print. And as they start that way, as they grow, what they tend to have are review copies or advanced copies, either from a publisher, because traditional publishers are using Bookstagram and taking full advantage of this opportunity. And a lot of indie authors are also using this and sending books. And this is something I started doing with my very first book. There are also authors who are using Bookstagram and posting bookish content. And I think that's a great way to kind of engage. So they're posting their own books or posting other books within their genre to kind of give reviews and to kind of get noticed in that space. Some of the Bookstagrammers tend to stick to one or the other. So I see a lot of people, like some things for hashtags I'm showing up that I have following in my feed. I'll go click and I can tell that one person is all traditionally published. Or they're all reviewing books that are traditionally published, and some are all indie and some are a mix. So that's something important to note. And I don't know all books everywhere that are published traditionally or indie. And it's getting harder to tell in certain genres. Like the rom-com genre I'm in, it's a lot harder to tell because the indie books have great covers, just like the traditional books do, and they look a lot more similar. I know my space. And so you should already know your space, right? You should know your own genre that you're writing in. And so you'll be able to tell this. I can't tell you how to do it. It's just knowing and knowing the market of what's going on in there. So authors can also use these hashtags as well, the Bookstagram hashtags, to be discovered by Bookstagrammers and the Bookstagram community. But I wouldn't abuse it. Like, make sure if you're actually putting that in there, you're actually posting about your book, and that's fine. So as you're trying to grow on Instagram and kind of get in a foot in the door of this kind of Bookstagram community, I'm going to give you guys some basic things and then talk about a couple paid options. And then there's so many more pieces to this. And this is all from things I have been doing. Like I said, I only keep one eye on that changes because all these platforms change. So over the years when I'm not using a platform, I kind of know what's going on, but a lot of specific details I don't because I'm not paying as much attention because I'm not using it. But here's what's working for me on Instagram. And then there's a lot of other resources you could search to find more details on the parts I'm not covering. But to grow on Instagram, the first thing that I do, so these are the things I'm doing, I follow hashtags related to my content. So I want to see content and content creators in the little spaces. So like one of the ones I'm following is like hashtag romcom books or romcom writer. I'm following Bookstagrammers who are reading the books. I'm following authors who are writing in a similar space. And following the hashtags is a great way, or even just going through and searching sometimes is a great way to find new people to follow and get an idea too for content. I would recommend engaging authentically. Like I will go, if I like somebody's post or I like the book that they're posting about, I will go like that, I might go follow the person, like the post, maybe comment on it. And I treat this the same way I treat most things, is that I give freely and behave in a way that I hope is reciprocated, but I don't typically expect it. I am definitely not watching often to see what my follow versus follower count is. So like, I'm not going to see like, oh no, I'm following too many people, I better unfollow some until I get more followers. I don't go follow people and then 3 days later go unfollow if they didn't follow back. I'm not interested in that game. Which brings me to the next thing is don't join follow engagement loops or groups. You may not have heard of these, or you may. I'm not a fan. If you're doing it, I'm not judging you. It's totally your choice, but this is not something I recommend because it's really not authentic. And Instagram frowns on these. And there have been stories through the years, but even recently, of Instagram finding out and then kind of shutting down accounts or doing what's called shadow banning, which means that your hashtags and things aren't showing up in the feed. Basically, these are small groups where either on Instagram or another platform, you have a group message, and anytime anybody posts on Instagram, they're like, hey, go like and comment. And basically that boosts up the engagement. Now, I know when we're getting started, we want comments, we want likes, we want followers, because it's that social proof and it makes us feel good. But it's not worth doing things that aren't authentic. And so it really sucked when I started over again in October and I had over 1,000 followers and I'd post something and get like 10 likes. And literally that's what it was like. I had to wake up my Instagram again. People weren't seeing me in the feed. I was posting different kinds of content. And now pretty consistently I'm getting over 100 likes, which isn't a lot for some people, but coming from where I came from of having like 10, hey, I've seen growth. So I would recommend doing authentic engagement and just letting it grow as it grows rather than trying to game the system. And on that note, don't follow advice for Instagram growth that's super specific on gaming the system. And I'm talking about the kind of advice like follow for follow strategies, like where you follow someone and 3 days later you go unfollow, whether they follow you back or not. Don't do that. Or go like X number of posts and comment on X number. I can always tell when somebody comes and follows me. And again, I don't pay that much attention, but when I'm going through my notifications and I see the same person and they've liked, and usually it's like a specific number, like 5 to 7 posts and commented on 1 to 3 posts as they followed me. And sometimes they don't even follow me. They just do that. And I'm like, oh, they've taken a class. The class told them, do this exact number, do this. Don't. Just... Again, I know it takes longer. I know it may feel slow. I may not feel rewarding at first, but go and do this authentically. Like a post if you like it. Comment if you want to comment and have something to say. Don't go check to see if they commented back. Don't go check if they did great, you can comment back too. Don't make it exact, like follow for follow, like for like, comment for comment. Engage authentically with what you're actually interested in. Over time, this is going to pay off. And I've absolutely seen that. It may be slower. It may be kind of frustrating at first, but just continue to show up and do it. And don't do these exact strategies. Now, if you take a class and they give you exact strategies and you want to employ the strategy, do it, but just don't do exact numbers. Because then people like me who know better are like, oh, there's somebody who just took a course. Okay, just be normal, y'all. And the next thing, use relevant hashtags. These are really important. In some platforms, hashtags matter more than others. Instagram, it's massive. What I do and what I did when I started over kind of doing Instagram for my rom-coms, I was following a few people who were doing really well in the genre, some comparable authors. I looked to see what hashtags they were using and how they were behaving. And then as I continued to be deeper in the Bookstagram kind of community, I started following Bookstagrammers and checking, like every so often. I don't have a big list. It's just in my head. You could be really smart and have a file and copy and paste and dump all the hashtags in there. Sometimes I'll use new, sometimes old. I like to switch up things that are really have a lot of, like 1 million or couple 100,000 people or posts, right? Because you can see if you go search a hashtag, you can see how many times it's been posted. So I do have a mix of things that are a lot and then things that are a little smaller that are still relevant. Some people will say to do them in the first comment versus in the post itself. I just put them in the post itself at the very bottom and usually hit enter or put a little space between them. It's fine. You can do a lot more hashtags on Instagram than other places. I don't have an exact number. And again, I'm not giving you one. So just use hashtags that are relevant to help your content be discovered and connect with other people. Post consistently. Like I said before, it's up to you whether you want to choose to have a visual aesthetic and take a little bit more time with the images. But when you're doing that, especially if visual's not your main jam, this may take time and may keep you from posting authentically. And that's really why I didn't use Instagram for a long time. I got tired of knowing what I should do and not feeling like I had the time to devote to creating this really beautiful aesthetic on there. I let go of that. I do tend to use the same filter for all of my images. I use a mix of things in Canva. I have my illustrations in there, and so I create little graphics for that. I have my print books, and I take print photos. I'm working on getting better with my flat lays. I have reels that I've posted with my books, and a couple with my kids. So again, like mine is a mix. I know what I'm posting, and I post just a couple of things. I post about my books. I post some about my family and life. That's what Instagram is for me. So decide what you're going to do. And you can go back to episode 199 where Megan and I talk about this and kind of picking a few things. And that's what you post about on all your social media platforms. But that makes it a little bit more interesting. The main thing is don't go so crazy on the visual aesthetic that you forsake posting, because nothing's going to happen if you wait until you're ready to post the perfect Instagram feed. So that's what I would say to you. And then as far as engagement, this is kind of the last thing before we move it into a couple of paid options. Engage with people. If someone comments on your post, respond. And I've started getting a lot more comments. I posted recently and tons of people responded. Like I think I had almost 100 comments, and I went back and commented on every single one. It took a while, but I just kind of, I don't have a set time. I don't like that. If you prefer working with set times and blocks during your day, do that. For me, I feel stifled and I reject it and do less. So I just go on Instagram when I feel like it, right? But I engage. I try to comment on every comment and respond to it. If people share something of mine, like if I have a post and somebody shares it in their story, because you can actually do that. You can go and click on a post and there's like a little looks like a little paper airplane kind of thing. And you can share it to a message. You can share it to your story. So I share a lot of posts, especially as Bookstagrammers started putting my books up and posting them and tagging me. I would share it in my stories. You can repost things in your feed. I would always ask permission. So you could, if a Bookstagrammer takes a great picture of your book and puts it in their feed, you can ask them, hey, can I repost that? So there's apps, but you can also just ask for the photo, put it in your feed, and make sure you're tagging them in it, and say repost from so-and-so and send people to them. So you're able to go and do goodwill. And so anytime anyone shares for me on Bookstagram, I try to make sure I'm constantly sharing it to my stories. I might share it in my feed. I'm commenting on it. I'm saying thank you. So I'm just engaging authentically. And this is really the best way to behave. And again, I behave like this. It's like the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated and you hope it comes back to you. But I don't keep a record, right? I'm not keeping a record of who is not doing that. And I've made some real authentic connections. I feel like I know who these people are now that I've been doing it for months now and starting to see a lot more people come in. And I've started to see comments like, I picked this book up because I saw it on Instagram. And I've actually seen traction. Like I posted about I put up 2 pre-orders in the same day. The only place I posted was Instagram. And within an hour had 50 pre-orders, which was a pretty massive thing for me, just in general about pre-orders, but also from something that didn't cost me any money, right? Free promotion, 50 pre-orders. And again, I don't have the most engaged group. I have over 2,000 followers now, but remember, I had a lot of followers before and they're not super interested, right? So I would say that I have somewhere really close to 1,000 people who actually care, maybe less about what I'm posting now. So that was good for me. And then I did a paid tour, and I'm going to talk about those in just a sec briefly. And it's actually different now. I've now had a higher income day, but up until March, my highest income day it was actually during the freeze week here in Texas. I had no internet. I could do no posting of any kind. I had held off. I always have Facebook and Amazon ads running in the background, but I know my baseline for that. My highest day ever where I went above $1,000 in a day was when my book tour started on Instagram. And so this was a paid tour that I did. It was under $100, but then there was the cost of shipping the print books to people, and I did a giveaway, so there was a prize. So it probably ended up being around $200 for this. And that brought me my first day over 1,000. I think it might have been my first day. No, it wasn't my first day over 1,000, but it was my highest day above 1,000, which is now I've blown that out of the water too. But up until then, that was my biggest day. And again, I had no power, no internet, wasn't even online. So I have seen the power of Instagram, but it takes authentic engagement, time, and consistency. So the 2 tours that I would recommend, I would not recommend blog tours. I can't speak to those, but I know less people are blogging, and I have not seen any blog tours that have really impressed me. And I haven't looked at these companies, so I'm not knocking their blog tours. I'm just not interested in them. But for Instagram tours, Prism book tours, and Just Read publicity tours. And I have both of those linked in the show notes at the end of the post. So this is a whole lot, and a lot of it's really basic information. It's basically figure out the platform and engage authentically and don't be a D-bag on the platform. That's about it. But I really have started to see traction on this platform, and I'm investing a lot more time. And like I said, I'm investing a lot more money because I'm sending print copies to people, probably about 20 per book right now. But I have found more and more and more readers and new readers that are on Instagram and don't follow me anywhere else. They're not on my email list. They're no one I've heard of before. They've only come from Instagram. So this is a platform where people are active, people are moving, and you can actually connect with people. So now that we're finished, if you want the show notes, head over to createifwriting.com/203 for episode 203 to find the links that I've mentioned here in the show notes. If you want to follow me on Instagram and just see what I'm doing, my handle is @KikiMojo over there. Because again, like I said, mine is not super branded. It's all over the place. And that's my conscious choice. And I wouldn't recommend it for you. But that's me. If you want to sign up for my weekly emails so you can get emails when there's new podcast episodes and more resources like Instagram tips, you can go to createifwriting.com/quickfix. And if you want to join the free community full of a lot of wonderful, wonderful people, I was going to give a number, but I was like, I don't know how many people are in the group right now, but a couple thousand really engaged people, you can go to createifwriting.com/community. A huge thank you to Jasmine Commerce of Jasmine Commerce Music for the music for this show. And a big shout out to you guys, whether this is your first or 203rd episode. I'm so glad that you are here and you are listening. Now is the time where I challenge you to go out and create content that you love and serve your people well.